Greetings, everybody. I'm Joshua Orro, the Mustang Prince, and welcome to Mustang Prince Orro Reports. So, joining me for this spooky season is my good friend, the creator of Go Back Movie History, Scott Addison.
Thanks, everyone, and I'm glad to join Joshua again.
So, anyway, for today's episode, Scott and I are going to return you to one of the most famous horror films in cinema history, Halloween, which was created in 1978 by John Carpenter and Deborah Hill.
One of the reasons why we think it's a famous film is mainly due to its simplicity, from its story, its score, and characters like Laurie Strode and Michael Myers.
And over the years, while 3 of the sequels were good, the others went from despicable to boring to Bull Shark to a huge mess. And as for Rob Zombie's remake from 2007, well, it was okay, but still had a rushed ending. And sadly, its sequel was a big disaster.
And then 3 years ago, in 2018, we received a new Halloween follow-up, and it was glorious due to it doing the original 1978 film justice. Special thanks to David Gordon Green and Danny McBride, and to John Carpenter for being the creative consultant.
However, just a couple nights ago, Scott and I saw a new addition to this spooky and thrilling franchise. But, question is this: is it worth checking out this season?
Well, let's find out.
Released on October 15th, 2021, the movie is Halloween Kills. So, on to the plot of the movie. The nightmare is not over, as unstoppable killer Michael Myers escaped from Laurie Strode's trap to continue his ritual bloodbath. Injured and taken to the hospital, Laurie fights through the pain as she inspires residents of Haddonfield to rise up against Myers. Taking matters into their own hands, the Strode women and other survivors form a vigilant mob to hunt down Michael and end his reign of terror once and for all. So, what did we think of it? Well, in my eyes, this film was really thrilling, heart-pounding, and it had me on the edge of my seat. And yes, I enjoyed it. What about you, Scott?
Well, I thought it was intense, and there were some jumpy moments, which is reasonable when it's not overdone. Otherwise, it was fun.
But to further explain why we enjoyed this movie, let's move on to Mustang Notes.
Before the release of the 2018 film, Danny McBride confirmed that he and David Gordon Green were originally intending to pitch 2 films that would be shot back-to-back, as well as releasing both films in October 2020, but then decided against it, waiting to see the reaction to the first film. Following the critical and commercial success of the 2018 film, developing on the sequel promptly began as early as October 2018.
By February 2019, Scott Teems was hired to co-write the script. The film's title was officially announced in July 2019, along with its sequel. Principal photography commenced in September 16, 2019, in Wilmington, North Carolina, which involved a car wreck scene on September 20th, which was my 29th birthday, and September 21st. Additional photography included simulated gunfire scenes on September 27th, 30th, and October 1st. Additional filming occurred on October 16th, 2019, and the filming concluded on November 3rd, 2019. Now, to me, I like the setting in Haddonfield, and I thought it was cool that the story takes place right where the last film left off. Also, I like the flashback scenes which took place after the 1978 film.
To me, I like the 3 main characters as they're portrayed as badasses and the story was pretty good.
Plus, while watching this movie in theaters, there were moments where my seat was vibrating, perhaps due to the surround sound. And there were a couple Easter eggs from some of the past sequels, like these three masks from Halloween 3, and the scenes at Haddonfield Memorial Hospital, which not only give me spine chillings due to my phobia of medicals, but they also bring back memories from 1980s Halloween 2. But by far, in my opinion, the best part of the film is the opening credits sequence, which not only plays the classic Halloween theme, but it kind of fits into the film's plot, due to it starting with a single pumpkin, which represents our three main characters, but then it zooms into a group of pumpkins, some of which being set on fire, which to me represents the supporting characters. Also, what surprised me while seeing this movie was reuniting with my childhood friend Justin Bernardhead, the founder of Slasher Films Inc., who was sitting across from me.
But while this is a good movie, it's not without a few minor flaws.
For example, a few kids are running around town with a maniac on the loose, a gay couple move into the Myers house, and there's also a suicide scene, which was really, really stupid. Anyway, now that we're done with Mustang notes, let's move on to the cast. Now, let's start with our villain, the mentally insane and evil Michael Myers, portrayed by James Jude Courtney and the legendary Nick Castle. To us, Michael Myers has some really creative kills in this movie.
For example, aside from using his kitchen knife, there are scenes where he presses his thumbs in someone's eyes, which I have a phobia of. He uses a shattered light bulb, and he uses his immense strength to crush someone's head and uses a baseball bat at the ending.
However, Myers does get a little bit of character development during a scene where it's mentioned that he felt bored while staring out his sister's window. Our main heroine, Laurie Strode, is once again played by Jamie Lee Curtis, whom during her Scream Queen age was in the 80s Fog and Prom Night movies. And during the 2000s, she was in 2003's Freaky Friday and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and the Island of Misfit Toys. Now, as I said 3 years ago, I think Jamie is like a spitting image of my mother, and I still stand by that, even though I think my mom's more attractive. Anyway, in this film, Laurie doesn't seem to do too much in this film due to her being injured after trapping Michael Myers in the basement of her compound.
But perhaps it's for the best that she gets better before facing Myers again.
Next is Laurie's daughter, Karen Nelson, played by Judy Greer, whom was in Studio Ghibli's The Cat Returns, 2013's Carrie, and the MCU's Ant-Man movies. Now, there's not too much to say about Karen other than the fact that she's very cautious and overprotective of her daughter and mother.
But we thought it was pretty clever when she lures Michael into a trap by taking his mask.
Our next character is Karen's daughter, Allison, played by then newcomer Andy Matichak. In this film, Allison wants to avenge her grandma by fighting Michael Myers herself, which we thought was pretty risky.
But it was smart that she joins a group led by Tommy Doyle, whom we'll bring up later.
Next we have Cameron Elam, played by Dylan Arnold. In the last movie, Cameron was pretty stupid for cheating on Allison during a Halloween party. But here, he seems to have redeemed himself a bit by helping Deputy Hawkins to safety and joining up with Allison and his dad Lonnie, whom we failed to mention previously was a bully to Tommy 40 years ago. Next is Deputy Frank Hawkins, once again played by Will Patton, whom was in Remember the Titans and Armageddon. As we remember in the previous film, Hawkins was said to be the guy who captured Michael Myers 40 years ago after Laurie Strode was attacked.
Anyway, in this film, Hawkins is recovering at the hospital with Laurie, and do you know what we think? Hawkins was lucky to still be alive after being assaulted by Dr. Sartain. Also, Hawkins and Laurie do share a nice moment while they chat in the hospital.
Finally, we have Tommy Doyle, played by Anthony Michael Hall, whom was in Edward Scissorhand, Weird Science, and National Lampoon's Vacation. Now, for those of you who have not seen the original Halloween film, Tommy was a young boy whom Laurie babysat.
However, in this film, Tommy organizes and leads a group of people to march and face Michael Myers after hearing about the crash on the news.
However, while that was a nice move on Tommy's part, what I would do when facing a serial killer, which may not happen anytime soon in real life, I would wear a football armor to protect myself in case I would get stabbed. Other members of the cast includes Charles Cyphers as former Sheriff Lee Brackett, Kylie Richards as Lindsay Wallace, and Nancy Stevens as former nurse Marion Chambers. And now let's move on to our final words. Overall, Halloween Kills is an excellent addition to the Halloween franchise. The atmosphere and setting in 2018 Haddonfield was dark, foreboding, and chilling to my spine. The hospital scenes were sometimes pretty terrifying. Plus, the main characters like Laurie, Allison, and Karen were great. And I'm glad they brought back several familiar characters from the original film. And we think Michael Myers is still as ferocious, and he has pretty creative kills.
For any of you that are into the Halloween franchise, give it a watch. Before October ends, obviously. But anyone who's under the age of 17, don't watch this till you're older.
As for our rating, we'll give this movie a 91% out of 100. Yeah, there were a few minor flaws like a suicide reference, but overall, this movie was still worth it. Now, just to give everybody a heads up, the Halloween franchise is still far from over, because next year, on October 2022, the franchise will continue with Halloween Ends. Also, before then, there will also be another horror sequel, which will be released in January. But you'll see our blogs on them soon enough. Anyway, that's all for now. I'd like to thank Scott Addison for joining me for this episode.
No worries, Joshua. It was a lot of fun to do a co-review, especially for the Halloween season.
As for everybody at home, be sure to join me for one more episode for 2021's Nightmare Month. Mustang Power.